Hello, everyone. Thank you for checking out this special episode of Really Dicey. This is Manny, and I am here with.
With Mattias Johnsson from Free League Publishing in Sweden, no less.
And today we're going to talk about the Ruins of Symbaroum, particularly the Throne of Thorns, Part 1, and the World of Symbaroum source book. So I have to say, I really like these line of books, and I'm glad they're coming out for 5e, 5e Dungeons and Dragons. Not that anti fifth edition Dungeons and Dragons at all, but sometimes their source books. I feel like, how should I say it? Sometimes I expect more of a Lord of the Rings feel, and I get more of Narnia. Um,
Oh,
which again,
yeah,
which again, it's nothing
that's
wrong.
reasonable. Yeah.
Yeah, which again, there's nothing
Mm.
wrong with that. But sometimes I want something a little bit more serious storytelling. So yes, I'm enjoying that these books are coming out for fifth edition uh, Dungeons and Dragons, and again, Ruins of Symbaroum. We have uh, first part of a major campaign called the Throne of Thorns, which is based on two books. Am I
Yeah,
correct?
yeah. The the original or the campaign, the Chronicle of the Throne of Thorns for the original game is a six-part uh, campaign. Um, but those and those books, especially the first four, include not only the adventures but also a lot of lore and you know plot hooks and stuff, even extra and new rules for the GM.
Hmm.
Um, so what we have done now is basically take out all the lore stuff, and not only the lore stuff, but also the GM material, the plot hooks and the big secrets under the surface and whatnot, the early history of the setting and so on, and we have put that in what we call the World of Symbaroum. So that is more or less now uh, uh, a lore and setting module for playing in the World of Symbaroum.
Oh, okay.
And then we have the adventures as standalone, and lumped together two and two. I can tell you that the last and final episode will be a monster. It will be like 350, 400 pages.
Oh,
But
wow.
this first one, I think, let me take a look. It landed on something like 200 and 200 pages, just about. So,
Hmm.
and it includes Wrath of the Warden and the Witch Hammer, the two first episodes in the chronicle that are sort of sets the stage for what's to come.
Hmm. And just to let our viewers know, just to be clear, that Ruins of Symbaroum is actually based on Symbaroum, a role playing
Yeah,
game, same company, same creators, but very different rule system.
this one.
Hmm. Yes.
Uh, yeah, very different. I would say that Matthias Lilja, who designed the original Symbaroum, he drew quite a lot from Dungeons and Dragons, various editions of Dungeons and Dragons, but it definitely plays very differently.
Hmm.
It's much quicker, much deadlier. It's, as you mentioned, more darker and whatnot. So we hope with this, because our what we see as the main point behind the creation of Symbaroum is the setting, the lore, the adventures, the stories being told, right? And I think together with Jacob Rogers, we have actually found quite a good way to make it possible to tell those stories and engage with that setting with the 5e rule set. And yeah, because there are lots of people out there who struggle in trying to get their friends to even try anything else than 5e. So, and we sort of we met those people at conventions and whatnot, and this is catering to them. They want to play Symbaroum, but they cannot get their their friends to play anything besides 5e because that's what they know. So yeah, with a few small tweaks, I think Jacob Rogers has really helped us make the 5e rule set fit the Symbaroum feel and style of playing.
Mm. Yeah, I sort of look at them as gateway books, the Ruins of Symbaroum. Again,
Yeah.
nothing against Fifth Edition Dungeons and Dragons,
Mm,
but I would Adventures of Middle Earth that came out originally for Cubicle 7, and now we have the
mm,
One Ring books and Free League. I remember in the beginning we did the 5e version of Lord of the Rings for a few years, and then I
mm,
think players realized like, hey, I want the rule system to feel more like the game we're playing. And I think that's what's great. That if you want that option,
mm.
you can go get the original Symbaroum books and get that
Yeah.
feel of the game more closely. For the Throne of Thorns, let's talk about what the adventure, as without spoiling too much, contains exactly. So, what is this campaign?
The campaign is basically, if you read the setup, the campaign setup or setting setup in the core books, or because aside from these books for 5e, there is the player's guide, the game master's guide, and the bestiary. And reading those, you will see that we are presenting a setting that is already in motion. Stuff is happening there. There are conflicts, ongoing conflicts that you directly can tie into, right? And the as with most epic campaigns, in some part, this one is also about power struggle, but it's not a struggle between good and bad, good and evil. It's not a struggle between right and wrong, between you know that kind of dichotomies, dualities, or whatever.
Hmm.
It is more a question of various factions struggling against each other, and you as a player and you as a GM will have to take a stand because it's not clear cut who is supposed to be the bad guy. It's not a moral grayscale; it's a question of perspective. You can align yourself with the Sun Church or with the Pansars, or you can align yourself with the Queen or the Iron Pact, which is this group of elven wardens that are trying to keep humans out of the big dark forest of Davokar. It's also a question about the human condition, in the sense that what we are doing to ourselves and to our environment and to each other, of course, and how and why. Hopefully it will raise some questions, even if, I mean, you can play this as much as murder hobos as you can play it more dramatic, as a drama. But there are aspects of the Symbaroum setting that calls into question, especially the struggle or the collision between civilization and nature,
Hmm.
and that is really at the heart of the campaign as well. Uh, the various factions that are competing for dominating the realm of Ambria and the region of Davokar, this huge, mysterious, quite dangerous forest. They all represent different views on how civilization and nature should relate to one another, and whether it's possible or not for civilization to not, yeah, destroy what it touches.
Hmm.
In the world of Symbaroum, nature can fight back, and that is also one of the the things that gives this story flavor. Much like I know, don't know if we talked about that before, but if you've seen Princess Mononoke, the the way nature has a tendency to react violently when being attacked or when being exploited, or that is something that you will find in the world of Symbaroum as well.
So for the Throne of Thorns, now again, you mentioned this was adapted from previous source books. Were there any changes that you some I don't know if you had a chance to like look at it and say, oh,
Mm,
let me just tweak this and change that.
yeah,
Um,
a little bit, and especially I think we needed to manage expectations in some way, because this campaign is not like your typical adventure path, or indeed adventure for other 5e modules. They are designed in a way to give the players, not always, but and in varying degree, but move the decisions of how the story develops to the players, basically, or and their characters, more precisely their characters. For instance, when it comes to the first scenario, no spoilers, as I said, but or as you said, but in Wrath of the Warden, it is set in this border town very close to the edge of Davokar Forest, and the whole scenario plays out in this town. But what the players are given things to act on and to react to, but how they react to, who they seek conflict with, and who they seek collaboration with, is very much up to them. So there is, I don't know if it's an yeah, I think it is. You talk about railroaded adventures, right?
hmm,
When the adventure basically goes from one station to the next. This is not that. There are some parts of some episodes that has a more linear structure to them, but mostly they are made for the players to be the actors, not just the reactors
hmm,
to the story. Uh, yeah. So we have added some discussions or introductions that has to do with what kind of adventures this is, just to manage the expectations of the GM reading it. And then we have also added a few. Uh, I think there are a few pieces of lore that we have added to, not the adventure book, but the World of Symbaroum, because yeah, we have had used some of it in the Game Master's Guide before, and then yeah, why not add a few more locations for those who are visiting the capital city of Indaros, or indeed Thistlehold, or Karvosti, the cliff of the High Shefton, uh, deep inside the forest of Davokar. So, but basically, this is just a conversion,
hmm.
and that is, I mean, that is the whole point. So, yeah, maybe there have been some rephrasings here and there, and we have had to uh, adjust a few challenges because of how different the rule sets are between the original and 5e. But whenever we have done that, we have done it in the spirit of trying to make the feel at the table, how it plays, to be very similar. We just need to do it in different ways depending on which system we are writing for. And again, I have said this a number of times now, but Jacob Rogers has done, I believe, a fantastic job. because he
Mm,
really understands both systems really well, and he understands the setting that we're working with. So without him, I don't see how we could have done this.
mm. So, the Throne of Thorns, is it? Do you see this being? I know the original adventures were a 6 book, I believe, set or
Yeah,
7 book set. Um, do you see this being like a trilogy, a
yeah,
book, 3 books?
yeah. At least that's the idea currently. It may turn out that the third book in that scenario becomes so heavy and burdensome to work with
Hmm,
that we have to split it in two. But it looks like our ambition is definitely to make it a 3 book story.
hmm,
As I said, we can move some. We have already moved some of the stuff from the earlier adventure books to the World of Symbaroum. So yeah.
hmm. And speaking of the World of Symbaroum, let's talk a
Oh,
little bit about that. Um, I'm really excited about this. I loved your adventure books, um, but
the
I'm a
compendium. Yeah,
yeah, but I'm a big sucker for lore. I love stories. I love settings. I love something that I can sit back and just read and let my imagination take over. Um, so this is based originally from materials from the adventure books, also from the I believe there's a game mastery guide that came out for Symbaroum some time back.
yeah.
So would you say that's is there new material? Is it have you changed some things?
No, as I said, we have added um, a few paragraphs basically to fill in the holes left where we moved stuff from adventure books to make the Ruins of Symbaroum Game Master's Guide.
Hmm,
So, but other than that, it's all it's divided into 3 parts. The first one is meant to be read by both players and GM. It is definitely designed to be read by both. The idea being that players who are acquainted with sort of the surface of the various locations where their characters will find themselves, if they have this surface knowledge of the how the setting works and what, you know where do you go to find information about this and that, where do I go to buy this and that, where do I go to meet these people. um, the idea is to make the players more uh, you know not yeah you don't need to handhold them all the time as a GM. They should be able to take their own initiatives when they are, for instance, in Thistlehold. Uh, the second part is for the GM only and shows what hides beneath, and of course presents a lot of secrets and ready-made plot hooks. I think there are upwards of 30 or 35 even concrete plot hooks that are basically just ready to be brought to the table. Uh, Also, you get to read about the early history of the Dauka region, um, the background that either explains what happens in the Throne of Thorns, or if you're not playing pre-made adventures, you can use it yourself as a basis to create your own stories. The final part in this book, we collect 7 adventure landscapes that are basically there to give you as a game master primarily, but also as a group after playing them, a sense of how actually the forest of Daokar, which is like one of the main characters of the game, how it or indeed other parts of the wilderness of the region, how they can be used to create scenarios. And typically those scenarios, when we call them adventure landscapes, it's basically, it can be one ruin or a part of, one is centered around a big bog in the inside for the forest of Davokar. And then aside from the location, it presents some actors uh, that are active in the area with their own agendas, their wants, their needs, their drives, their will, if any, to compromise, and so on. Uh, and then there is something that there is a main conflict, basically, between these groups, and enter the players, and let's see what happens. Uh,
Hmm.
they will arrive there with their own agendas, and sometimes, I mean, this is not a game like Alien that is. Have you played it? Our Alien role playing game.
Oh yes, yes,
Yeah,
yes.
a game that is basically very much designed uh, for conflicts within the group of players. Symbaroum is not that, but it can easily be played like that because there are so many factions, so many competing factions, and I mean, it is not unlikely that you will have one wizard of Ordo Magica, which is a big, like, mystical slash academic order of Umbria, who wants to climb the ranks in his organization, and then you have another player character that represents the Sun Church, for instance, the Church of the Lawgiver, Rios, who also wants to bring the object of this scenario or whatever it is. It can be knowledge or an artifact or whatever, to his side of the faction, and you can easily have conflicts rising within the group uh, naturally without having to sort of, yeah, you normally don't have to create tensions within the playing group as a GM. They arise because of the different alliances that is present in the groups of PCs.
Hmm. So I can't help but to notice that with Free League, they do something that I really enjoy a lot. They put out an adventure book, and then they also put out a setting book almost at the same time. I noticed this also
Mm-hmm.
with the One Ring books and the Lord of the Rings 5e. Um, if I may ask, is that like that's not just a coincidence? That's a would you say that's a free league strategy? It's a way so that um,
No, it depends on the game, I would say. I mean, we have today such a huge catalog of different IPs. For me, just to take one very clear example, I work quite intensely on Dragonbane at the moment, and of course, Symbaroum is my baby. And even if both are fantasy games, it is games that are very, very different in terms of how they play, the tone. Um, yeah, the rule sets have similarities, definitely, but I mean, one is more adult, the other one is more mirth and mayhem, as we call it, for Dragonbane. So, and depending on the style of the game, the brand, the IP, you will see different uh, really types of releases for them. I would say, and at different times. For
hmm,
instance, then Dragonbane, that we consciously have not made. There is no world, it's set in setting terms for Dragonbane. There are one valley that is described in the core box, and then we are working now on something that actually came out on pre-order the other day, Path of Glory, that is set in another part of the world, but there is no map or any book or something that will give you a picture of the whole world where Dragonbane plays out. Uh, so yeah,
Hmm.
different depending on what kind of gaming experience basically we want to facilitate.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So I noticed that for the most part you kept a lot of the art style and art
Mm.
direction the same from Symbaroum and to the Ruins of Symbaroum. If I may ask, what's the thought behind that, the plan for that? Do you see that the artwork is very linked, very special
Oh
to
yeah,
the setting?
it's integral. I mean, Martin Grip, who is the lead artist, is one of the co-creators of Symbaroum as a game and as a setting, and his art was, yeah, I spoke about this before, but I mean, during the process where we developed the setting and the core game, his artwork often came before the text, in the sense that me or Mattias Lilja had written something, and then we asked Martin for an illustration or a concept art piece to show the particular thing that we were writing about, and we got something back, and instead of telling Martin to, you know, this is not what I thought. We often ended up rewriting the text instead, because his vision for this setting is was so magnificent.
Hmm.
So
Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
I hope that the artist makes its own art book about Ragnarok, because his his art it still looks like something you would see in a museum, but it
mm,
also has this really strong like post-apocalyptic feel. Meaning that when I look at his work, it just seems like, okay, this is a something something horrible is about to happen, some sort of war, some sort of thing, some sort of
it's very
chaos.
ominous. Yeah,
Yes. So I'm really glad that you they kept that for these books. It really
yeah,
gives the helps with the feel of the setting.
yeah. And we actually, if you look over all Symbaroum books, and it's quite a lot to date. Uh, I've only worked with two artists. It's Martin, who still makes most of the covers and stuff, but then it's Gustav Ekelund, who I would say is very similar in his art style, uh, and that it really helps bring, you know, it helps transfer and maintain the flavor, the feel of the game throughout all the books, because you can open which any one of them and you will see that it's Symbaroum, just based on the art. I mean, Martin does Alien and Blade Runner, and now is working on Coriolis uh, also, but there's a very distinct feel to the Symbaroum art, I would say.
Is there any plans? I'm going a little bit off topic.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
sure.
is there any plans on maybe making like novels based on this? Because Symbaroum, at least in my opinion,
Yeah,
and please feel free to disagree with
yeah,
me.
yeah, yeah.
Um, but I feel that it's such a unique feel that you can't really like move the setting to maybe do something else or combine with some games like Forgotten Realms and Ravenloft and so forth. There is a thing where you kind of like link them in some way, you
Yeah.
know. But Sabarum really feels really like its own thing. I couldn't like even with like a One Ring, for example.
Mm,
I couldn't combine these things together. It wouldn't feel right. It's a very different. Again, it would be like putting Narnia and Lord of the Rings together. It wouldn't
yeah, yeah.
great works. It wouldn't feel right. Is there any thoughts about expanding the role play games to like novels and so? Oh, never mind.
Actually, this is the first product that came out for Symbaroum, and it's a novel, uh, but it's only available in Swedish, and I don't really see that we will. Uh, yeah, we haven't decided in any case yet if we will translate them, because they are more young adolescent kind of Dragonlance first person point of view style, while I think what you are after, correct me if I'm wrong, but what I feel myself, that if I ever had the time, uh, I would probably be writing novels that are more in line with the chronicle, you
Mm,
know, with yeah, maybe kind of Game of Thronesy in the setup or the structure, because you want to tell about the clash of factions, basically,
mm,
and how how that plays out in this setting.
mm,
And this is not really that. This is a little bit more, down to earth, first person view. And I actually wrote the first one more or less as a way of designing the setting from within, exploring. We had the broad strokes, and I wanted to delve in there, see what happens, discover what someone moving around in that setting sees, hears, feels. And it turned into Lord of the Eternal Night, as it's called in English, or would be called if it was ever translated. We'll see what happens. Maybe someday.
mm,
What we do, yeah, I don't have anything else I can announce at the moment, but yeah, we are. What do you call it? Franchising,
mm,
in the sense that trying to find other ways to experience the world of Symbaroum besides role playing games. Yeah, that is
mm.
definitely the idea.
If I may ask, I know, at least for myself, when I write or create something for a long period of time, that eventually the work has a life of its own. It just
Mm,
becomes something totally different than what I envisioned the first time I started creating it.
mm.
Do you see anything like that with Samar?
Oh
Do
yeah.
you have you noticed a change since you first started?
Um, I have a sort of design philosophy that says that I wanna. It's it's going to be the best it can be if I feel that I'm not creating but discovering uh, the setting, the lore, the even the plots of the adventures, right? So when it feels like it feels like I am discovering the history behind various factions or various conflicts or whatever it can be, uh, and I write it like that. Uh, that also helps, I think, to make the world seem feel whole, you know. So yeah, I definitely understand what you mean. Basically, we often start with a main conflict when we design settings from scratch. A main conflict, and then let the world grow from there. And as long as you can, things always tie back to that main schism, or yeah, theme, maybe you can call it. Um, then you're in a good place when it comes to also presenting a setting that feels that it makes sense, uh, and where it's being also populated by people that act rationally in their shoes,
Mm,
based on where they are walking around and what shoes they are wearing. They are not fairy tale figures. They behave in a context, and their behavior, if done right, their behavior also says something about the setting, and about its lore and so on.
I'm very curious to see 5 years from now where Subaru will be, because it's
Mm,
progressing, in my opinion, a very like, it's funny. It's like, yeah, this is a setting book. There's a lot of tools. There's a lot of adventures here,
mm.
but I sort of feel like there's a direction, and I'm very curious to see where it's going to go. What the world will it expand some more? Would something be revealed that would totally change the whole atmosphere of the game? So
Yeah,
um,
we'll see about that. We are coming up on the 10-year celebration or anniversary of the game. The English version was released in 2016, so stuff is happening over the coming years. I mean, I finished the Throne of Thorns for the original game last year by releasing Davokar Awakens, the sixth and final episode. Um, so, in a sense, we have seen the end of one big saga, and we will actually soon announce a new release that is sort of it's written by Erik Hylander mainly, who did Call of the Dark Adventure Pack 4. Um, but then I am gearing up towards some big reveals in 2025 when it comes to original Symbaroum and, if all goes well, also Ruins of Symbaroum, because it would be awesome to catch up, and be able to do like we do for the One Ring and its 5e companion, that they are released basically simultaneously. That would be awesome. But we will always write and design for the original game first, then convert. That is how it will be also going forth. So
okay, excellent. That's very exciting. Um, One last question. I know as I'm beginning these type of questions more and more, I think a lot of people are moving toward virtual tabletop.
yeah, yeah.
Um, for the World of Symbaroum and Throne of Thorns, what options are right now available for anyone wants to try these online?
Uh, I'm pretty sure they were released on Alchemy at the same time that we launched the books in stores and whatnot. Uh, they will definitely come to Foundry. Roll 20, I'm not sure at the moment. Uh, we are lagging a bit behind when it comes to Roll 20. So it may take a little longer there,
Hmm.
unfortunately. But I mean, yeah, more and more are moving towards those kinds of platforms, and it's a fantastic development because it means that people can play more. For me, or I mean, for grown-ups who, yeah, move away from their gaming group and whatnot, they can reconnect and start playing again. So, but with so many games and so many products, we have a hard time. We have some catching up to do, except when it comes to Foundry, where I think we are pretty up to date with our latest modules, and we are getting there with Alchemy as well.
Hmm. Any last words about the World of Symbaroum or Throne of Thorns that I haven't asked you about?
Yeah, I can tell you for one thing that uh, the part 2 and 3 are in the works. Jacob is currently working on the conversion. So we will probably see a pre-order on those. Mm, yeah, I don't know exactly when, but it shouldn't be very long. And especially if it turns out that 5e players really enjoy these two books, then we will probably even faster in readying the next two books. So that is one thing. Another thing, yeah, what should I say? It's like you are asking me to yeah, I'm basically speaking about my fourth uh, baby. The other ones are grown up now, flown out of the nest. My daughters and my son. No, my son is actually living at home. Symbaroum will always be my baby. So uh, it's difficult to talk about without yeah, it's difficult to be sort of talk about it with some form of distance or objectivity or whatever. So it's actually better when, which I think you have done really well, when people ask you specific questions.
Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us about the Ruins of
Yeah,
Symbaroum 5e, the World of Symbaroum, and Throne of Thorns Part 1. I can't wait to look at the PDFs for this and see what's changed over from the previous
yeah, yeah.
books.
Mm.
And I'll put links to all that in the description below. And to our viewers,
Please do.
thank you for watching. Be safe out there. We'll see you next time.